I be like, sheesh, sunset on the beach. Make me wanna pull up on Miami with the heat. I don't know about you.
All right, welcome back to the Anytime Sports Podcast Show. We got another special guest on this week. We have my man, the myth, the legend, Jadon, big old Bengals fan.
Yes,
Flexing
sir.
for the camera right there. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your fandom with the team, your likes, dislikes about the team, and tell us your fandom and your background story with football.
Okay, so I've been playing football all my life. Grew up playing football, played high school, blah, 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 blah. That shit don't matter. I didn't make a D1, so it doesn't fucking matter. Okay. Besides that, I grew up a Saints fan, but that's pretty brutal.
That's a bad one too.
It's pretty freaking brutal being a Saints fan. And I'm not bandwagon at all. I've been a Bengals fan for about 7 years now. Even though they've been, not the best, I just grew a liking towards this team.
They got nice helmets. Helmets.
Then me being a Saints fan, I've always been an LSU fan. Like, that would never change. And that's pretty brutal sometimes too,
Yeah.
So,
well, you had the Joe Burrow experience. And that was
Joe
great.
Burrow and Jamar Chase.
Oh,
I was just like, man, it's a dream come true. Like, this is crazy. So that's pretty much how I become a Bengals fan.
Cool. Hey, that's all cool. Let's go over the Bengals in the AFC North. Very tough division. We talked about last week who the NFC East. AFC East. My bad. We talked about last week. We're talking about the NFC North this week. Very tough division. You got the Steelers, Baltimore Ravens. You have the Bengals, of course, and you have
Bills, right?
No, not the
Browns.
Bills.
Browns.
Browns. So the Browns are really the only team that you're like, they're not looking on the up and up right now. They finished 9-8. If they would have beaten the Patriots, we talked about this in week 1, they would have been playoff bound this year.
Yeah.
So really a bad season. And it wasn't because of the performance that Joe Burrow put. He put it all on the line. We'll go over some PFF grades later. But they scored 472 points, the sixth most in the NFL this season. So that's a pretty good stat to put up offensively. They had some decent firepower offensively. They were tied for 25th worst they allowed 434 points. That is a lot of points. They were in a lot of shootouts. Overall, they're a 17th ranked team. They'll be the 17th pick in this upcoming draft. Their offense is ranked 13th. Defense is ranked 22nd. Was the reason why they fell out of this playoffs. We can talk about that in a little bit. But Jane, what are your first thoughts on this team? Just looking at it this season.
This coming up season or just the past season?
This past season, and what do you expect kind of this next season?
I expect some changes on the defensive end, of course, but it was brutal, man. I thought we were going to be a pretty decent team this year. I didn't really look into the depth chart, see who was on the D-line, O-line, like who's the big boys in the trenches, but it was pretty brutal, and I think they should start with the defense first. I know the O-line is pretty mediocre itself, but I feel like we should start on the defense end, making picks in this coming up 2025 draft.
I think you read my mind because I did a mock draft the first 3 rounds, and I had the Bengals picking all defensive players coming out of this draft, especially on that defensive line. Because we've seen if you could get pressure on good quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, you could really disrupt them and get them off their A game. You do have Trey Hendrickson, who had a great season. I believe he had 17 sacks. Andrew, if you want to check that one. I believe he had 17 sacks this season. That's nothing to scoff at, too.
Yeah.
He's a very good defensive lineman. You need someone to pair him with, though. He can't do it all himself.
Yeah, he can't do it by himself. Football is a team sport.
Oh, it is.
Yeah,
the most team sport.
He had 17.5 sacks. He led the league, so very great asset there, and he's 30 years old too, so he's kind of on the older side, but
he's on the older side, but he's still got a couple. Yeah, he's still got a couple good years left in him.
Yeah,
a couple good championship years left in him. I'm looking up the tackle. They had Jermaine Pitt was a tackle leader with 143 tackles. That's impressive. 143. I don't know.
Off the D line?
No, not off the D line. He's a linebacker. He's a linebacker. Yeah, no, he's an interior linebacker. Yeah, D line, that would be insane if he was getting that much pressure. We're talking Warren Sapp on steroids. If that was the case, some Vita Vea action.
Man.
Even Vita Vea can't get that.
Yeah,
amazing.
Say another guy that did really good this past season was Shaka Hayward. He is a 93.4 PFF grade, and his rush defense is at 87.1. So super solid there. I'm gonna pull up his stats, final stats, real quick.
Shaka Hayward. He had. But he didn't play many snaps this season. The way I'm looking at it, he played like only 12 defensive snaps. 10 of them were run, 10 of them were pass. So I mean, I look at players who get a bunch of snaps.
Oh yeah, I see that too.
The next guy would be Mike Hilton, cornerback. He had a PFF grade of 75.9, which is not a terrible grade, but it's not
the best either.
Nothing the best. It's you could really improve in those situations. Will the Bengals spend the money to improve? We have yet to see that.
Especially they need to start spending.
They do. Paul Brown needs to get out and actually start spending his money. We can go into some other PFF grades. Let's look at another PFF grade. T. Higgins was the second highest PFF rated player with an 88.2 rating on the offensively. He certainly had some injuries throughout this season that's kept him out of some of those games. I'm sure as a Bengals fan, he was out of a couple games. But Jamar Chase follows him with an 85.8. He had 1,700 yards receiving this season, so he had a great season as well. But I don't think Jamar Chase can do it all by himself. What do you guys think?
Yeah, you're going to need to bring in another guy in the offseason, whether it's re-signing Higgins, whether it's bringing in a veteran, which we can touch on later. But T. Higgins this year, he had 911 yards opposed to the year before. He had a better year than the year before. The year before, he had 656, and he had 1,000 yards the 2 seasons prior to that. So he's put up numbers. And in the year they went to the Super Bowl, that's when he hit one of those 1,000-yard markers. But you need that guy to complement Jamar Chase, and if it's T. Higgins or if it's someone else, you need to pay T. Higgins. That's the thing, because he's going to go somewhere during free agency. He's the top-rated free agent in this offseason, so he's going to have to go somewhere. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes, or if the Bengals want him again, or who they'll get.
I don't think they're going to be able to keep him, man. They're not going to pay him what he wants, so they may as well just let him walk.
I agree. I don't think they will. I mean, they need to. That's the question. They need to. But will they? They don't seem like they are. And they have an opportunity to franchise tag him, which is what it's going to look like. But the next offseason, he's a free agent. That's how it goes. You can get franchise tagged twice, and after that, you're a free agent. So he'll just end up walking anyway next season. But it's very hard with a guy like T. Higgins. He is 26 years old. He's been a little injury prone, but his projected contract would be 4 years, $30 million a year. He had a great season this past season. The year before that, kept out with injuries as well. Great wide receiver, great to complement him with Jamar Chase, but could you get somebody on a like 1 or 2 year deal? The guy I'm thinking, like, why not? If I'm the Bengals and you don't want to pay as much, pick up the phone and call Deontay Johnson. See what he did in Carolina. Very, very good for Bryce Young. He ended up getting traded, and then he had the whole Baltimore stint where he got signed, released, and signed back again. But he didn't do very well. It wasn't a great fit in Baltimore. But I feel like it would be a great fit with the Bengals, especially they like to airmail the ball out there. So I think Deontay Johnson would get his fair share, and I think he'd be very fine being playing a second wide receiver to Jamar Chase.
I think that's a great idea because they don't want to pay at all. They're going to have to make some type of move. You know what I mean? Like you said, Jamar Chase cannot do it all by himself. And Joe Burrow needs time to throw the ball. It's a lot we got to work on, bro.
Oh, yeah. Well, if they want to spend some money, it's out there. There's guys like Trey Smith coming from the Kansas City Chiefs. Going to be he's a guard, 25 years old, projected contract, 4 year, $21.5 million. We also talked about this last week as well with the Patriots, who need an offensive line as well. They have one of the worst in the NFL. But you have Ronnie Staley again, 2 years, $20 million average a year. He is at the tackle position. He played for Baltimore this past season. You also got let me look at the next. I can't find another one right now. Those are the two main guys. I don't know if You guys know exactly. But you got some depth guys out there,
Yeah.
some guys that, the Bengals probably would be willing to sign because they're not going to be spending as much money. A guy that sticks out is Tevin Jenkins, who didn't get a fair shot in Chicago, really. He was kind of banged up, but he had shown some promise over his Chicago stint, but he really doesn't look like he's going to re-sign with Chicago.
Yeah.
I feel like you could definitely get him to go to Cincinnati. It's not going to be an amazing fix. It certainly isn't going to be the most ideal you would want as a franchise, but he might be a depth guy to kind of help the offensive line because, some of these guys get banged up in the trenches because they're getting hit every single play. So you got to have some depth.
Yeah, and especially with that depth in free agency, they have the 8th most cap space in the league underneath the Vikings, Chargers, Cardinals, Bears, Commanders, Raiders, and Patriots, and just above the Steelers. So they have $61 million to play with. That's a good amount of money, especially when you have weapons on your offense like Chase Brown, who showed out this past season. You have Jamar Chase, obviously Joe Burrow, those younger guys on your team. And if they're willing to spend money and build protection on that line for them, as well as build that defense, then they could very well see themselves back into a Super Bowl.
Jane, what do you think about this? There's a free agent out there, defensive lineman could be paired up with Trey Hendrickson, I think would make a pretty good combination if you'd hear me out. I think Khalil Mack at a kind of decent contract. He's a little bit on the older side right now. He's 34 years old, but he is coming off 2 straight seasons where he's been very, very productive. He's going to be 2 years, $22.5 million a year. He could kind of be a guy. He wants to win now, and he wants to win a Super Bowl. So you're going to have to sell him on the fact that this team could win a Super Bowl. But I don't mind that. What do you think about that?
He's going to be a free agent.
He's going to be a free agent this offseason. He's leaving the LA Chargers. That is confirmed.
Okay. Yeah, Khalil Mack, he's a dog, but we need an indefinite dog, like something that's the proof is in the pudding, like a freaking Myles Garrett. We need something bad, and
Myles Garrett would be very interesting, but I just don't think they're paying or trading for him. The Bengals don't trade. They don't trade. Right. They made the first trade they have in years when they traded for Khalil Herbert in the middle of the season. They don't like trading, so they'll probably get somebody on the budget deal, to be honest. If we're really going to be honest, they're probably not going to go for somebody like that. Like, they're not going to pay top dollar for Hassan Reddick.
Yeah.
They're not going to.
I was going to say, another guy you might be able to target that might be a little cheaper is Dre Greenlaw out of the 49ers. He had a off and on season this past year, but he's another guy you could probably get for a lower price. Or Zach Bond from the Eagles. There's a bunch of those guys out there that you can get from a lower price.
Greenlaw is very serviceable. He's like 27 years old, so he's got a couple more seasons left in him at a high level. I think you maybe give him a 2-3 year deal. I don't think that's a bad option as well. And if T. Higgins moves on, we have to mention some wide receivers that could maybe join in that slot. I heard, and I had this take last week. I think Cooper Kupp's going to get released. I don't think anyone trades for him. It's a bad contract. He's an older, banged up player. But if you could get a Cooper Kupp on a 1 year, $2 million deal, I'd have a Cooper Kupp at a 1 year, $2 million deal, and then pair him up with another good wide receiver. He's not going to be I'm going to catch the ball 13 times a game like he used to. But you maybe give him 5 catches a game. Like, that's not bad to put him as your slot wide receiver. He doesn't have to do much. He's a very good blocker as well. So to help the run game, and that's another point we haven't talked about yet, the run game. Chase Brown really came out this season and dominated the snaps towards the end of the season. I forget what's his rushing yards. I believe it's 800.
Yeah, I'll confirm that real quick. But yeah, they definitely he filled a big hole. Especially
he took the job from Zach Moss, really, because they signed Zach Moss as well. And I was like, why are they not starting Chase Brown? Because I saw him the year before, and I was like, Chase Brown is he's good.
He had 229 carries, 990 yards with 7 touchdowns. So very well taken that number 1 role, and he was drafted in 2023. He's only 24 years old, so he's going to be a great future running back, especially.
But is he the guy that you want to carry the ball 20 times a game? That's the thing. It's he's not a big guy, but he can take a couple hits. I don't know if you want him as the number one guy. I think you might go into this draft because there's a lot of good running backs. I don't know, Jadon, if you've looked at this running back draft, a lot of good running backs in this draft.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them. What's your favorite running back coming out of this draft? Do you know?
The alien, man.
The alien?
The alien himself. Ashton Genty.
Ashton Genty's your favorite.
He's a freaking dog.
Yeah.
Bro.
He's good. But I don't want to.
You don't like his
I'm
conference?
not drafting a first-round pick on him. That's just something I'm not doing. Not on a running back. I mean, you've seen it work maybe once before in the past. Like Jahmyr Gibbs was another one, but that was a pretty built-up Lions team that they were.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. If so, it would have to be a pretty built team that doesn't really need much else.
There's a lot of really good running backs in the later rounds that you could get for really good value. Think of the Ohio State running backs.
Yeah.
Very good running backs.
Yeah.
Who else is out there?
Quinshon Judkins.
Yeah, Quinshon Judkins.
Yeah, Quinshon Judkins. Yeah.
I'll list off.
What's his name?
Quinshon Judkins, Trayvon Henderson,
Trayvon
Caleb Johnson, Dylan Sampson, Cam Scadaboo. You have a lot of those guys. Yeah. Especially even in the mock drafts, you have a guy like Genty who necessarily didn't prove himself against big teams. He did rush for a lot of yards against Oregon during the season, but how does that compare against NFL talent? And like Colin was saying, is someone willing to spend a top 10 pick on him, or let alone a first round pick on him? Someone will, but how is that going to translate to the league?
Yeah,
it's hard to tell.
Yeah,
it's very hard to tell, and especially with running backs, it's like the Trent Richardson situation. Remember him back in the day going to the Browns? Like that was a first round draft pick, and it was just wasted. It wasn't very good. Another need for the Bengals right now. So to the defensive side of the ball, they let one of their best safeties walk in last offseason. Didn't allow him to get paid. You sure know who I'm about to talk about. Mr. Bates himself.
Bates himself. Oh, my God.
Himself, a leader of that defense. Leader of that defense. He was gone. Big hole to fill this offseason. You have a chance to rectify it, and you have a chance to rectify it by signing Javon Hollins out of Miami, who is a free agent. He didn't have the best season last season, but he is certainly one of the best safeties in the league right now. He's going to get a payday, but are you going to pay it? 4 years, $19.5 million. I would. He's 24 years old right now. He's about to be 25. He's in the prime of his career right now, and you really need someone to lead that defense besides Trey Hendrickson. I would pay the money.
Right. This is off the subject, but what do you guys think happened to Chase Young?
Chase Young, wow, that's a real blast from the injuries.
Go for it.
And I don't think he has the highest work ethic. I think he was very uber talented and had all the talent in the world in college. He was unstoppable in college. Ohio State, he was amazing. But I think that in the NFL, work ethic wise, keeping up on it, and injury wise, it's kind of hindered his career as well. That's why I think you got a guy like the Bears got that Sweat, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Bears got traded for Sweat, and people were like, well, why would you trade for Sweat when you got Chase Young you could trade for? Well, it really seems like the Bears won that trade with getting Sweat instead of Chase Young. He went on. He didn't really do much. He played in the Super Bowl, but he didn't do much in that game. He played with the 49ers. He's kind of hit a plateau in his career, and I don't think he's going to make a meaningful impact really on many teams.
Yeah, earlier in his career when he was with the Commanders and kind of hit that injury bug too, which kind of like shortened the beginning half of his career. Now he's on the Saints. He might be stuck there for a couple of years. So who knows what he'll do. But kind of back to Javon Holland, his top free agency comparison is Jesse Bates. So there.
There you go. You get a younger safety player right there. You have the right to make it good, Cincinnati. Do it. Let's talk about this offensive line play as they did not have a good season at all. Highest rated PFF player is 64.1 in the center position. They got to protect Joe Burrow. And yet Joe Burrow had the best season I think he's ever had.
Yeah.
He's had an amazing season. If they ended up making the playoffs and making a deep run, guaranteed probably would have been in that MVP conversation. He had a PFF grade of 93.9. It seems like he was getting pressured every single play, making these ridiculous throws to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins down the sideline. It is just absolutely insane. But he's frustrated. He's frustrated. He wants his guy, T. Higgins. It doesn't look like he's going to get his guy. How do you keep your star quarterback happy in this situation? Because arguably you could say he might be the number 2 best quarterback in the league. That's up for debate. He is definitely a top 5 guy. How do you keep him happy? You stumbled into a generational talent and you don't want to spend the money. How do you keep him happy?
I mean, I don't know, man. T. Higgs wants a lot of money, but the Bengals, they so confusing sometimes, man. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But a guy like Marquise Brown, right? Mm-hmm. He's not the best pass catcher. He's fast, shifty. He's a decent route runner. You could pay him the bare minimum, give him a one-year deal, and just see what he does, how he fits into the offense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's true. You could get someone like that. What do you think about paying a guy like Chris Godwin? He's one of the top free agents. He's coming off of a bad injury, though. 3 years, $20 million. He's going to be less now, probably since the injury. He's 28 years old. He had a good season up until his injury. What are your thoughts on a guy like Chris Godwin?
I mean, he's a veteran. He's been in the league forever, so that'll be good for the locker room, for the younger guys. But I really can't say much on that. I would just have to see that pan out.
Certainly, I can mention a guy you don't want on your team. Probably a guy named Stephon Diggs would probably not be the best option on your team right now. No. Maybe a prime Stephon Diggs would have been you would pick up the call and make, but he's a free agent. I don't know where he's going to
He's too entitled, man. Yeah. He thinks he's just shit.
He's 31 years old, and I don't know. I just don't know. And going from a guy who is really selfish to a guy who is selfless and Amari Cooper. He is a free agent this offseason, ended up with the Bills at the end of the season. He is 30 years old. How much football does he have left? How much is he a number 1 guy? I don't know if he could be a number 1 guy, but he's definitely could fit a number 2, and he's not going to demand the ball like some number 1s would.
Yeah, you also have a guy in free agency towards the end of his career who's kind of fallen off recently, but DeAndre Hopkins. He's another guy that's out there still. He's been iffy. He finished off this past year with the Chiefs. But yeah, he's an interesting guy out there too that you could add to the team maybe for a cheaper.
I don't know. I just don't like. See, I'd rather take Marquise Brown, like Jane was talking about. Yeah. He's like 27, so at least you got a couple more years out of him at a decent price too. I think you're going to be paying too much for the name brand and not the talent that comes with it. Because a prime D-Hop, I'd be telling you, spend the money right now. Yeah. You're not going to get a better wide receiver. I just don't know. He had an okay season when he went to Kansas City halfway through the year. He didn't have the best by any means, but what do you think about that, Jadon? DeAndre Hopkins, his career outlook, how many years do you think he's got left?
He's most definitely on the final couple years, I would say. He probably got 1-2 more years, good years at that.
Oh yeah.
If he keeps playing longer than that, I think he's gonna have a bad season and be forced to retire on a bad season, and I don't think he wants that.
Yeah, that would be a hindrance on his career resume. You think if he retired today, do you think he'd be a Hall of Famer? That's a hard decision.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the ring.
I couldn't say.
That's a hard one.
Say, bro.
That's one of the hardest decisions. Is he a first ballot or is he a Hall of Famer?
I mean, he has unbelievable hands. Don't get me wrong. Like, they throw the ball, he catches the ball. He rarely drops that ball. But I mean, there's so many more guys out there that are deserving of it,
Yeah.
And it's like,
do you? I don't know. That's a really hard discussion. It's like He reminds me of kind of like Larry Fitzgerald never won a Super Bowl, but he got in the Hall of Fame. But he had some really good stats, like
Yeah.
Hall of Fame stats. Let's go into some of the draft options. So I did the first 3 rounds, and I thought, here, let's draft a couple of these guys. Starting my dog here. Andrew, do you want to go over some?
Yeah, the Bengals have a couple needs this offseason. Obviously, wide receiver, which you can fill. They got the 17th overall pick. You might want to wait till a later round to draft a receiver because obviously the top receivers are going to be off the board by that point, being Terriota McMillan out of Arizona and obviously Travis Hunter. They're not going to be there at that point. They also need a guard, defensive lineman. Really, I would say the Bengals should address defensive needs in the first round. I don't know about you. Do you have anyone in mind, possibly the Bengals drafting? If you've taken a look at draft boards.
Let me take a look.
Yeah, there's a bunch of guys out there, especially. Let me take a look. Yeah. This mock draft I'm looking at has them taking Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss.
You were just reading my mind. I was literally about to say that right before I went. Yeah, Walter Nolan's. I think he's a guy that you really consider at that position. He was a junior. He is 6'3", 305. He's 21 years of old age. So he's pretty good out of Ole Miss. He had a PFF grade of 88.9 this season. He played 13 games, played 587 snaps, had 6 sacks, 4 hits, 25 quarterback hurries, and batted 2 balls down. This season, he's a very good option, and especially you need some help on the interior side. And what better way to draft a guy like an inside defensive lineman like Nolan is?
Yeah. And we were saying that there's a lot of options they can go in the first round, but like you kind of mentioned before the podcast, they should definitely go defensive player for the first couple of rounds of this draft.
Oh, yeah. And in the second round, I have them picking an LSU man. Can you guess what it is?
Receiver?
No, edge.
Harold Perkins.
No.
Who else?
He is a defensive lineman. He's an edge rusher. Let me see.
Let me see if I think of it.
I'm going to let him try to guess that.
No, I'm about to look it up.
Look it up. Edge rusher, LSU. Last name starts with an S.
He's an edge rusher from LSU.
Yeah. He played 13 games this season. He had 637 snaps played. He pass rush snaps 313 times. Run defensive snaps of 281. He sacked the quarterback 9 times this season. He had 8 hits on the quarterbacks and 43 hurries. 0 balls batted the year before.
You're talking about what number is he? Number 4?
Defensive number. I think he's number 4.
Swinson. Yeah.
There you go. You got it. Yeah, he's a guy that, he's a pretty good player, and especially his pass rush grades are very, very good. He could be a guy you could pair with Trey Hendrickson on the other side, maybe get some pressure. You're only hoping for a couple sacks, really, a year to really take some pressure away from Hendrickson, really. But I like him. I like that pick. 2 defensive picks I have going 1-2.
Yeah, I would think that they need to obviously address defensive needs, I think, throughout first 3 rounds of the draft. Especially with how the defense is, and they have a lot of young experience on that offensive side. Really, you can address the offensive line and free agency because there's a lot of guys out there, and then you can put that draft stock into defense.
I'm gonna go use the bathroom real quick.
All good, man. All good. Let's go into another guy that we think. I think Jeffrey Bassa a linebacker out of Oregon. I think he's a pretty good pick in round 3. He's 85 off of the PFF big board. He is 6'2", 235 pounds, a senior. He is 22 years of age. He played for the Oregon Ducks. He had a pretty good season. Let's look up his stats as well. Played 14 games, played 579 snaps, a pass rusher snap of 61, run defensive snaps of 226, had a coverage snaps of 292. He had 34 tackles, 13 assisted tackles, and he missed 5 tackles on the season. He had a PFF grade of 73.2. The year before, he had a PFF grade of 76.1.
Yeah.
What do you think about my first 3 rounds? I want all defense in my first 3.
I would agree with you there. Like I was kind of saying earlier, you need to address that defensive need on that side, and especially for a young team like the Bengals that's on the up and up, you need to keep addressing that. And I think that Walter Nolan is pretty much, I'd say, a lock for who they should pick for their first round if he drops to them, obviously. Having that young stud like that, and he's also the top-ranked defensive player for a while in the draft until, actually, at this point, he's the only defensive player on the board. Actually, no, there is Malachi Starks from Georgia as a safety. But I think you need to draft a defensive lineman. Obviously, you have Trey Hendrickson, who's getting older. You're losing some guys in free agency, so you need to get Walter Nolan in there to boost up your defensive line.
Yeah, definitely need to boost up that defensive line. Just to recap, Jadon, I had the Bengals going with Jeffrey Bassa. He's a linebacker out of Oregon, 6'2". He was 235, senior, 22 years of age. So I have the Bengals going all defense the first 3 rounds. You certainly could say, yes, all defense would be nice. An offensive lineman would be nice. You could also say draft a guy like Jalen Royals, wide receiver out of Utah State, who's pretty good. He's a deep threat as well. If you need a wide receiver, he might be a good option as well instead of that 3rd-round draft pick. But I had them going all with defense because I think they could patch the offensive line a little bit better in the offseason through free agency, and I think you need to get young with the defensive side of the ball. If you're not going to pay guys, get a young, talented defensive core. See what the Rams did. They drafted perfectly with their defense. They're set up.
The Eagles, man.
The Eagles are a great example of a young core built with a couple very good veterans.
Yeah.
And they're going to be a very good team for a couple years to come. But really how the Rams are doing it too. They had a really bad defense, I think 2 years ago, just very bad. Aaron Donald retires. They really don't have a direction on the defensive side of the ball. And they had a very good season this past season. Yeah. They're looking to build on that. And that's why they were trying to maybe shop Matthew Stafford and get another quarterback. The Rams are definitely trying to get a quarterback in next year's draft. This quarterback draft, we can talk about this as well. It doesn't really pertain to the Bengals, but the quarterback situation in this draft, it's not as strong as it has been in years past. There's teams who are going to maybe not pick a quarterback this year and pick another one like Arch Manning next year, or there's a couple other guys I'm forgetting off the top of my head that are pretty good coming up in the ranks. Do you take a quarterback in this year's draft, Jane?
I mean, if I'm struggling for one, yeah, but it would have to be off of pure, not just stats alone. It would have to be off pure tape. I have to see what he do.
So you're Tennessee. You're number 1 right now. You're the GM of the Tennessee Titans. What are you doing? Who are you calling? Who's your selection?
Honestly, I like Jackson Dart, man.
Jackson Dart?
Yeah.
You pick Dart?
I really like Jackson Dart over Cam Ward and Shador. I know Cam Ward.
Wow, you pick him at 1?
If I had out of this QB class, man, it's tough because I don't trust Cam Ward and I don't trust Shador Sanders. I'm gonna be honest.
I like Cam Ward a lot more than I like Shador. If I'm gonna be honest, I like Cam Ward. I think Shador is gonna be a serviceable. I think he's more of a 2nd-round talent, but I think he's gonna go in the 1st, just because of the draft. Dude, if I am.
Honestly, I lied. If I had first pick, I'm taking DJ Uiagalelei.
No
DJ
way.
I'm
No
joking,
way,
man.
dude.
I'm joking, man.
No way, dude. Old failed Clemson quarterback. Jeez.
The
You
oldest.
may as well
way I take
go
him.
apply for some car dealerships.
He's
I
the
wouldn't
lowest ranked.
touch him with a 10-foot pole if I'm.
He's the lowest ranked quarterback in this year's draft too.
Yikes, man. If I'm Tennessee, I'm picking Abdul Carter at 1. I mean, he's the best player in this draft. He's the best defensive lineman in this draft. Don't make the mistake. Just go with Will Levis for one more year.
I wouldn't go with a quarterback, to be honest.
Yeah.
I was answering the question if I were to pick a quarterback. You know what I mean?
Well, I said if you're Tennessee, who would you pick? I didn't necessarily say a quarterback.
Well, that's what I thought you was.
No, I'm saying you could pick anyone. You're Tennessee. You're the GM. Pick one. Who are you taking?
I like Will Campbell, but I don't know if that's one.
Yeah, well, Will Campbell is a very good option. He's not a number 1. He's a great tackle, but he's not going to be your number 1.
He's most definitely top 10, though, bro.
Yeah.
Top 10. He might go top 10. I forget who's picking in the top 10 if they need offensive linemen. PFF has him as the 6th ranked best college prospect coming out of this draft. He is very good as well. He's just big. He's 6'6", 323 pounds. Talk about a tackle.
He's fucking massive.
That's a tackle. That's something the Bengals wish they can get, but he will not fall to the Bengals at all. The Bengals are going to have to trade up for that draft pick. Yeah. The Bengals are picking at pick 17 as well. You got a couple options here. I mean, you can go with Kevin Banks Jr., the tackle out of Texas as well. But he is 20 years old, actually, and he is 6'4", 320 pounds. He's pretty good if you wanted to go tackle as well. Mm-hmm. Or, you could just blow everything up and just cut Joe Burrow and then draft Cam Ward. And let's see how this goes, right? Right, Jadon? You like that idea?
I can't even joke like that. I can't even joke like that, man.
The Bengals could save some money if they did that.
Crickets.
I know a great backup quarterback that is just waiting to be a starter again. If you'd want to know his name.
Come on.
His name, I mean, you can't judge me.
Davis Mills.
But, no, Davis Mills is another option. So is Gardner Minshew. But I wasn't thinking that. I was thinking more of Bills legend and Bears legend. Mitchell Trubisky. Go with him.
I think that
you can't even keep a straight face with that one.
I was going to say, I think we should dive into what we think Joe Burrow and the Bengals' potential is going to be next year. We can take a look at their next year opponents, too, and see how we think that's going to pan out. Burrow.
Let's look up their opponents.
Joe Burrow coming off the best career of his year, 4,918 yards with 43 touchdowns. He's due. He's locked up for a bit. You got Jamar Chase, and then you got to get him some weapons. Let's look up the Bengals next year opponents.
All right, they'll play the Baltimore Ravens like they always do, Cleveland Browns, Pittsburgh Steelers. They will play the Chicago Bears and Detroit Lions, New England Patriots. Actually, wait, what? This is 25-26. So they played Patriots 2 years in a row? That's weird.
I guess so.
New York Jets, Jacksonville Jaguars, and Arizona Cardinals. All those will be at home. All those are home games. Away games would be Baltimore, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Buffalo. They play Green Bay, Miami, Minnesota, and Denver, all in away games. You want to go through the games? Let's pick them. It's way too early. Picking games. Okay, so you have Cincinnati at home versus Baltimore. Who do you got?
Honestly, I got Baltimore, man.
Gotta have faith in your team. They're gonna. It's gonna be interesting. Because the Ravens are coming off a disappointing season. The Bengals are coming off of 5 wins in a row to close the season. So I think that could be one of the.
We don't know when these games are. They're not scheduled yet, so they could be early, later in the season. We're just picking off of that. So we have a loss for them. And then how about Cleveland Browns at home? You think they get a win, right?
Yeah, it's a win. Yeah.
Surely they.
So at home against Pittsburgh, I think they get a win. I think Pittsburgh is weird with their quarterback situation. Yeah, I think they get a win there against the Chicago Bears at home. 72 to 0. It's gonna be a loss.
I think
easy dub.
I think there's multiple cases of this, the outcome of this game. If this game is played, say, the beginning of the season, I think the Bengals are going to win it. If this game is played towards the middle to later half of the season, I think the Bears could win it once they get their stuff together. But I don't know. Yeah, we're just basing this off of what their opponents are, not when the games are. The schedules are released around May, June-ish, so we won't know when.
Battle of the poverty franchises, okay?
Yeah.
Battle of poverty franchises. You got Detroit Lions. I'm gonna mark that as a loss.
I think
that is a loss.
I think the Lions are gonna have a bad year. I think the Bengals could win this.
I do, but I think the Bengals are gonna bangle, and I don't think they're gonna win that game. New England Patriots in a rematch.
That's a win.
Yeah, I think
sure. It was not a win last year, and that was against Rod Mayo, and then you got a Mike Vrabel led team this year.
Nah, we're not losing to them twice in a row.
All right,
we play them twice in a row. We're not losing twice in a row.
I'll give you a win there. Okay, how about the New York Jets?
They had a pretty bad season.
At home. They're at home versus New York.
Yeah. That's dub, bro.
I'm gonna give you a win.
Yeah, we don't even know who their quarterback's gonna be. So
that is true. The Jacksonville Jaguars at home.
That's a dub.
Yep.
Trevor Lawrence is a letdown, man.
They got a lot
I thought he was gonna be this.
Oh, very much so.
Besides
you hear the rumors that Trevor Lawrence might be going to Pittsburgh. He could be going to Pittsburgh. They've called about him. That'd be a weird place for him to land. No, he doesn't seem like a Pittsburgh quarterback. Not at all.
I'm gonna say besides the Lions and the Ravens, the Bengals have a pretty easy home schedule this next coming up season. The last opponent on the board is the Arizona Cardinals, which could be iffy this coming year too.
I think they get a win versus the Cardinals.
Yeah,
I am here.
So I'm gonna give them a win there. Okay, this is the away game. So I think they'll. Do they win it? Do they win one against Baltimore this season, or does Baltimore get the sweep?
We're going to win one. If we don't win the home game, we're going to win the away game.
Okay, so we'll give you one. It's Cleveland Browns. You think they did it last year? Remember, this was the game that you had to run, Andrew?
Oh, gosh, yeah, with the Bengals.
And no, it was the Steelers.
It was the Steelers and
Browns game where he had to run 4 miles on a treadmill because he lost a bet.
Yeah. I think they'll get the season sweep on him.
Okay. I'm gonna give them a win there. So then we got Pittsburgh. Do you think they beat Pittsburgh again?
I think we lose to Pittsburgh away.
Yeah, I think they lose away to Pittsburgh.
I was gonna say Pittsburgh always finds a way to win, no matter what season it is, and what because Tomlin's never gone below 500, so I don't think.
I think they also lose to the Buffalo Bills at away.
Yeah.
In Buffalo, depending on that game, I'm going to give them a loss there as well. They have the Green Bay Packers. They're going away to the Green Bay Packers.
I think we can pull that out. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, it'll be close.
Very, very tough game. I expect that game to be very, very close. I'll give them a win because. F the Packers.
Yeah.
Let's go Miami. So they're going to be in Miami. Depending on when this game is, it could be very, very hot. So I don't know. Does Miami get the win here, or are we giving Cincinnati a win? I think we're giving them two wins here. It's not very good right now.
I'll give the Bengals the win, in my humble opinion.
You get the Bengals to win.
Yeah.
Yeah. From these opponents,
I just think it's a trap game. It just looks like a trap game.
Yeah. From these opponents that they're playing all next season, they looks like they got a lot of
They got a pretty easy
schedule. Yeah, a lot of easy games. You do have some tough
They play
opponents.
the Minnesota Vikings away in Minnesota.
I think we lose that one.
You don't know who the quarterback's going to be.
Didn't they? They didn't re-sign.
They're letting Sam Darnold walk.
What?
Yeah, so they're not paying him the money. They're going to let him walk. So, yeah, I don't know. For right now, I'll give the Bengals the win there.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give them a win. Then,
who did the Vikings draft? Didn't they draft what's his name? JJ McCarthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he got injured early.
I kept him out, but he's pretty good. So let's see how he does in the second year. He had some injury problems after he got his initial injury this past season. So I don't even know if he's going to be ready to go week one, but if he is, it'll be interesting to see how he does. The last game we have to go over of their season is Denver. In Denver. I think they lose that one.
I think we lose, bro. I think
they lose that one.
There's an interesting story coming out of considering Denver today. Tight end Robert Gronkowski is considering returning to the NFL. He's in talks with the Denver Broncos.
No.
He's in talks with the Broncos, Sean Payton. He loves Sean Payton and Bo Nix.
What?
So that's what I saw today.
He's too old. He can't play. What is he, like 37?
He's 35. He's not that old.
Oh, geez. I thought
But
he was like 37.
I think it's a play with him to get more money from Fox. There's no need for him to return. He's a 4-time Super Bowl champ. He's got a great gig at Fox. He's getting that money. He's living the retirement life.
I have the Bengals finishing the season as follows. They would finish 10-7.
Okay. That's not bad.
Not bad at all.
Mm-hmm.
Not bad. Does it get them in the playoffs?
Yeah, it depends. Yeah. It depends.
I think this season it will, because I think Pittsburgh is going to take a step back. I don't know who's going to be their quarterback. I think they take a step back. And I think Cleveland's just not going to be good.
Yeah, I think it depends on, like you were saying that, and then it depends what weapons they get in place of T. Higgins, because we don't think that he's going to resign there.
That's true.
It depends who they get, because they can win with just Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, but you need another guy to complement him. Depends who they get, because who knows, not saying it, but the season could turn into a catastrophe like it did a couple of years ago. Or they can build on their momentum from this past season, and who knows, we could see a great Bengals team.
Let me give you a question that needs to be answered. Is Zach Taylor's job safe?
I would say yes, only for a few reasons. One, what's helping him is this a couple of years ago when they made it to the Super Bowl in the second year of his coaching career. The fact that he has this team around him, I believe they have faith in him. Now, is it the safest as it was when they're coming off of that Super Bowl loss? No. But I think he's safe for the next couple of years. If they have a couple of bad years, then obviously not. But
what do you think, Jade? Zach Taylor, head coach.
Yeah, he's on the verge of being fired. Not fired, but on the verge of them looking for another head coach.
Yeah.
But he's pretty all right. He basically turned the team around. You know what I mean? Yeah. And they're on the upscale. They did have a worse season than they did when they went to the Super Bowl, but you got to give a man some time. I feel like 2 more years max.
And they've given him a lot of time. The Bengals don't move on from coaches that long. Think how long they stuck with Lewis for like all those years. Marvin Lewis, who was just average at best with those Andy Dalton, AJ Green teams. So they're very okay with mediocrity, to be honest. But it's going to be weird to figure out this team. I don't know where to pinpoint them, because they're not a Super Bowl contender, because they don't want to spend the money. I don't think they want to spend the money at all, and I think that's hindering them. They have a generational quarterback. You do not want a generational quarterback to leave the building. You don't want him to go somewhere else to have a success. Then you got to help him in the prime of his career get a Super Bowl ring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it depends what Joe Burrow would get to, because obviously he's coming off the best year of his career.
he may be the guy.
Yeah.
Who we say he is this generation's Phillip Rivers.
Yeah.
Very good quarterback, but was in an era with great quarterbacks with great teams around him, like the Bills, the Chiefs, Baltimore. You have the NFC. You have Jalen Hurts. You'll have Washington and the Commanders. That's another team we got to talk about. That'll be a good team for years. Jadon Daniels.
He's a dog.
What a season. He's automatically, in my eyes, he is the best NFC quarterback in the NFC. He's going to run the NFC for years to come. I guarantee that. Is it good to see that LSU guy, Jadon Daniels, ball out?
Man, bro, I had a feeling he was going to do good, but it's just so great that, it feels so good to see it actually happen, Like, I'm so happy for that guy, man.
Hey, that could be your NFC team. Besides the Saints,
it don't roll like that. One team
like that. One team. Well, you like the Saints as well too, right?
I mean, if I see them playing the game, I would root for them, but that's not. I don't associate myself with the Saints at all.
Yeah. You could have picked any team, and you picked the Bengals, dude.
I don't know, bro.
You had a chance to escape.
It's rough. It's rough. It's rough here too, man. Fuck.
Yeah, the Saints aren't any better now, too. So, I mean, I guess you dodged a bullet there, and at least you have a team that'll win.
Yeah.
Barely. But I'm about to get up out of here, man. I'm gonna head to the floor real quick.
Yeah, we're about towards the end of our episode anyway.
Yeah,
we're about done talking with everything.
I was gonna say, I think this has been a good episode of the Anytime Sports Podcast. We got a lot of draft talk in, a lot of deep information on the Bengals. There's not a lot that they're building on compared to the Patriots last year. All right, yeah, there's not a lot they're building on compared to the Patriots, who have a higher draft pick. They have more to build on in free agency, but I think the Bengals, they have a pretty good outlook going into next season.
They do. Well, I thank Jadon again for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much.
He had to leave, but I'll thank him again too. And in 2 weeks, maybe we'll be back with another one. We need some more time to debrief and go more into these teams.
Yes, we're gonna hopefully do some more deep dives. We're gonna maybe do a Jaguars deep dive soon. Do another Bears deep dive. Of course, that one will be near and dear to our hearts. But we're gonna do some more deep dives soon. Free agency is coming up. The draft is coming up. We'll have a lot of off-season content for you guys. So stay tuned. That's been the Anytime Sports Podcast and the Bengals deep dive. We'll see you later.
Our work is never over.